Hey guys, my name is Philip Benz with Benz Productions. I'm a wedding commercial filmmaker based out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. So recently I've been getting asked a lot of questions about what camera bodies I shoot on, what lenses I shoot with, what equipment do I use, how do I color grade, do I use LUTs, what profiles do I shoot on. The list goes on and on, all the way down to what frame rate I shoot in, what shutter speed, and the biggest one is, do I shoot in auto or manual focus. So what I wanted to do was go ahead and make this video and walk through a full wedding teaser with you guys shot by shot, so you guys know exactly how I did it, exactly how I got the couple to do what I wanted them to do, and at the end of the day how I walked away with all the footage I needed in the editing bay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and step over there to my computer and let's go and get into it. Alright guys, so before we get too deep into the actual editing process of this, let's go ahead and talk about some of those key points I was referring to earlier. So camera body, so I shoot with a Panasonic GH4, I have two of those. What equipment do I use? I use a Steadicam, it's a Mosalite 2 by Goodson, and I also use a monopod that's made by Benro. No, I do not shoot in log format. I'm not against it, I'm not for it, I just haven't used it and just personally don't think I need it. What profile do I shoot in? I shoot in Cinelike D format. It is a very flat profile. It's basically what log does. It just gives more, it just takes more information out of the camera, and it's a flatter profile, so when you go to edit, as far as color grading goes, you have way more options when you go to color grade without the image quality being disrupted or anything like that. Everything I do is manual, so manual focus, manual exposure, manual white balance, manual everything. If you're just starting out or maybe you've been doing this for a while but you're stuck in automatic mode, just take a week. Just take a week, flip that thing over to manual mode, lock everything down on manual mode, and just learn how to use it, because it's going to save you in the future, and I'll tell you why when we go ahead and look at this video. A lot of the stuff that I do is slow motion, so I shoot 60 frames per second. And with that 60 frames per second, what I do is I double that, so my shutter always stays at 1/125th of a second. So it's always kind of double your shutter speed. There's ways around that. There's an automatic setting, I believe, somewhere in there that someone was telling me about, but I just like to do it the old school way and just double my, my shutter speed is going to be double what my frame rate is. How do I get past shooting at that, that shutter speed in very bright light? So right now it is 7 o'clock on the East Coast, so the sun is pretty much starting to go down. Golden hour is kind of already past us. What I do is I have two ND filters, so neutral density filters. They're basically sunglasses for your camera lens, so it allows just a limited amount of light to come into your lens, so that way you can keep that that frame rate the same that I was talking about earlier, and you can also make sure that your f-stop is at a low number. So let's go ahead and go into this edit now. That way we can tear all this apart and you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. Alright guys, now that we're actually in the editing bay, we can actually go ahead and see that I'm using Final Cut Pro X or Final Cut Pro 10, whichever one you want to call it. Adobe Premiere is very similar to Final Cut, so don't be caught off guard that I'm not using Premiere or anything like that. They both work just as well as each other. The only big difference is that they're going to have different names for different filters. So they both work very well, they work very identically. It's just a matter of trying to figure out which filters I use compared to what filters you have to correspond that with Adobe. Before we actually get too deep into it, you're going to probably notice the groom. He's American Idol winner and country singer Scotty McCreery. This was a really fun wedding, but the thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that no matter what couple you get, whether it's a celebrity clientele, a normal clientele, a doctor, lawyer, anything like that, they are all normal people on their wedding day, because they're all feeling the same emotions that you and I would feel on our wedding day. Their family's there, their friends are there, people are there that they have not seen in a long time. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who the couple is, it just matters what you can do for that couple and how you can kind of preserve that day, because that's what we're trying to do. Let's go ahead and watch this video all the way through. It's only 1 minute and 15 seconds long, so here we go. Alright, and that was the drone ending right there. So, what I do with these wedding videos is I always start with something that's going to be eye-catching, whether it be a drone shot, a slider shot, just something you want the viewer to see immediately and catch their attention. For me, they got married at a beautiful, beautiful venue in the mountains, and you can see right here, this is the shot that I opened it up with. So what I'm using here is a Mavic Pro by DJI, and really all I wanted to do was just go ahead and showcase this beautiful landscape right here. Let's move on to the next shot. So this shot right here, the little detail shot of the dress. This was actually shot with my 18-35 Sigma Art 1.8 lens with my Steadicam, my Moza Lite 2. So I mentioned about autofocus and manual focus. So you'll notice right here, you see this plant right here? What I do is I like to shoot through a lot of objects. So if you notice right here, the reason why I do that is because it creates a really nice reveal shot. And when we reveal stuff to the viewer, it's kind of like a surprise every single time they watch it. So that's why I do reveals. But the thing is, if you were in autofocus, not all the time, but more than likely, this foliage right here would have been in focus, and then once you got out to right here, that's when that dress and stuff would have become in focus. So unless you're going for that type of rack focus look, which you're probably not, that's why I recommend learning manual focus, learning manual settings. Let's move over to the next shot. Boom. Immediately go into a detail shot of the bride getting her makeup done. A lot of people ask all the time, how did I get the shots that I get? How are you always there for the right moment, this and that? I'll be honest with you, the majority of the stuff that you see me do is faked. It's still their wedding day. They're still getting their hair and makeup done on their wedding day, but it's faked to the point where I'm really just kind of directing a little bit. So at this point right here, she already had her mascara done. And what I did was at the very end of the makeup session, I asked, hey, it's only going to take me 30 seconds to get this shot. And I asked the makeup artist this. It's only going to take me 30 seconds to get this shot. Do you mind if you can just fake lower lashes really quick? And I'm shooting video, so make sure you actually go ahead and put some movement into it. That way it doesn't look like a still photo. So what I did was I just got Gabi to, and that's the bride, to look up at a light source, which you'll see right there next to her pupil. She's kind of looking right out of a window. And the reason why I do that is because she has these pretty green eyes, and what that's going to do, that light is going to actually go ahead and make her pupil smaller. It's just going to be a more interesting shot at the end of the day. So that's what I did there. This was actually shot with my monopod with the 70-200. So after that, we move on to a shot of the makeup artist. So I always get shots of the makeup artist during the foundation stage of hair and makeup, or of makeup. The reason why is because we don't want to see the bride when she has when she has foundation all over her face. It's not appealing to the viewer. It's not appealing to the bride. We want to make sure the bride looks as beautiful as possible whenever she's on camera. So what do? We shoot other people. So I knew in the edit that I was going to need a shot to cut from this shot to this shot. So what I did was the makeup artist was not doing mascara. She was actually folding or curling the bride's eyelashes. So you'll see that little curler right there. I think it's called a curler, I don't know. But she was doing that, so all I did was just cut from the action. So boom, boom. You wouldn't know that unless I told you that, or unless you watched this video multiple times. So I needed a good reaction shot. Right here. So this was not necessarily faked. The bridesmaids were already looking at the bride getting ready. They weren't doing anything. I believe at this point they were actually eating some lunch or some breakfast or whatever. So what I did was I just focused on this one bridesmaid, and I said, hey, do me a favor. Go ahead and look at the bride and just fake laugh. Just ha ha ha, fake laugh for me. And as soon as I do that, 9 times out of 10 they're going to laugh at you because you sound stupid. But the good part is that when they do laugh at you and they're looking in that direction, you get a genuine laugh/smile that looks really good. So I do that a couple of times. It's really just a matter of throwing yourself out there and interacting with everyone that's incorporated on that wedding day. Next shot is a ring detail. Boom. So that shot right there is the only time I use my 50mm lens. Every now and then for the reception I'll use my 50, but for the most part, this is what I'm using when it comes down to the rings. Now, I have a slider called an Edelkrone Wing 7. Edelkrone is a company that makes specialty camera video gear, and they're very pricey, but their equipment is incredible. This piece of equipment is a slider that is only 7 inches long and fits right into my camera bag easily. I half the time never even know it's there. But what I'm doing is just sliding in and out. This shot is also still in manual focus. Everything I do is manual. And the way I do it is I actually slide all the way back first. Right now I'm sliding in, so I slide all the way back first. I set that focal point. So I think it was right there was when I set that focus. I always shoot this shot at about a 2.8 or 3.4. The reason why is so I get enough depth that when I do slide in and out, it's still in focus to the point where the viewer's not going to catch it off guard. Take your time when you're setting up a ring shot. Arrive a little bit early because all of this wasn't just thrown on a table. This M back here from McCreery, that was back there. This right here, the ring, obviously I put up there. I actually put my wedding ring under this little ring box. That way we could tilt it up a little bit. And my light source is just a window over in this corner. I try to use natural light for everything. It's faster. It looks better when you do it the right way. That's just why I do that. Let's move on. So this groom right here, he actually got his haircut on his wedding day. It's rare that they get their haircut on the wedding day, but it's good for me because it just gives me one more piece of the puzzle that I can use to help piece their story together and tell their day. This shot was actually done with my 7200 with my monopod. A lot of these really tight close-up shots are always going to be with my monopod and 7200. And all I'm doing with that monopod is I have it in my hands. I'm not using the little arm. I actually don't like the arm. If I could take it all the way off, I would. So I'm just holding that camera like this with my hands on that focus ring and just very slowly just moving left to right and just swing. It kind of looks like I'm doing camera yoga if you want to. And all I'm doing is just while I'm doing that, I'm just very subtly adjusting that focus just to make sure that everything is in focus that I want to stay in focus. We need a shot to go along with that one. So we move on to a wider shot of Scotty getting his haircut. Now, what I did right here, he did not look like this when we shot this shot. What we did, or what I did, was I just got him, I said, hey Scotty, wherever you're looking, just keep on looking in that direction. Fake laugh for me, ha ha ha. Same thing with that bridesmaid. As soon as I tell them to do that, they laugh. And they're not laughing because they told you to. They're laughing because what you just told them to do just sounds dumb. But it works for me every single time. There's only a couple of times where it doesn't work, but they must be in a bad mood. I don't know. But I just did this right here with Scotty while I was getting his haircut. Hey, laugh, ha ha ha. Boom. Got that nice shot. Before we get too far into this, I edit with the music. So you'll notice that a lot of the high points, as far as the tempo goes and this and that, I have a reason to why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, for example, the music's about to pick up really big. So what I do is I fly right into the big mansion that they're getting married at on top of the mountain, just to kind of get that next shot. Boom. So that transition that I use right there, right there. All that transition is, you can download it. I believe it is, let me see, it's M Transition Zoom. Yep. So it's M Transition Zoom. Just go ahead and Google that. If you Google it, I think it's a $50 package that you can buy. That's the only plugin I use when it comes to editing. So, boom. Right here. So the bride actually getting her dress fluffed. So what I told Gabi was go ahead and kind of look down at your shoulder for me. And the reason why I did that is because when she's looking down at her shoulder like this, it's kind of as if she's paying attention to this bridesmaid right here and her mom back here in this corner, kind of doing what they're doing. The bridesmaid did not fluff her dress on purpose. I asked her, I said, hey, you know what would be really cool? Go ahead and fluff that dress for me really quick. Now, I use a lot of movement with my shots. This was shot on a Steadicam at 18 to 35. What I'm doing is, you see this chair right here, all I'm doing is just, I'm starting right here, and then just with my body, I'm not walking or anything like that, just leaning forward and moving in. So just boom, just like that. Really quick and easy. Then we got this shot right here. This is with the 7200 on my monopod, and this right here is mom just looking at the back of the dress and fake zipping up. Now, when she's looking at the back of the dress, again, just like Scotty getting his haircut, no one is ever stoked to be getting their haircut or just looking at the back of a dress. So what I'm doing is, while I am shooting mom zipping up the back of the dress, I'm really just telling her, hey, it's your daughter's wedding day, I'm sure you're excited, blah, blah, blah. Just making her smile, okay? So you got to sweet talk them a little bit just to get these little reactions out of them. But Gabi's mom was actually a lot of fun, and she smiled for anything, so it was perfect. Now this right here, this was a semi-stage shot, but the thing is, don't feel bad when you're staging a shot, because you're still going to get those genuine emotions, and at the end of the day, you're also adding something that they may have not thought about. So for example, this was after the photographer was done posing them, this was after I was done posing them. What I did was, I kind of whispered over to the photographer, I said, hey, I'm going to get mom to hug the bride really quick, so just be ready. Develop that connection with your photographer. Doesn't matter if you've met them before, you haven't met them before. You guys are both there for the same purpose. Make sure you guys are both working together and getting the shots you want. So what I did here, this was actually with my 18 to 35. I had it zoomed all the way into 35, and with my Steadicam. All I did was, hey mom, do me a favor. Go ahead and give your daughter a hug really quick. As soon as I said that, I'm already recording, so I was ready for the shot. They looked at each other, and then boom, gave each other that hug. And it was the most genuine hug that you could imagine. So I mean, just look at their faces. None of that looks faked, none of that looks staged, because even though you told them what to do, they are basically doing it out of love. So they're still doing it because it's her daughter's wedding day. But they just had to kind of be nudged to do it. And the cool thing is that, since I told them to do that, the photographer got a good shot. I got a good shot. They happened to be music videographers here that day for Scotty's music video, This Is It. They got that shot out of this. So it was a win-win for everyone. So as long as you guys work as a team and help each other out, that's what works best. Next one. So this was Steadicam zoomed all the way in. Since I'm at a 35, I still have to get pretty close to get these type of close-up shots. So what I did was, I just said, hey, Scotty, just go ahead and look out the window for me. I asked him to look out the window. His dad, Mike, back here, I just asked Mike, hey, just act like you're adjusting Scotty's tie. They were already dressed, so it's just another attempt to get more footage. All I told him was look out the window. So that was perfect. And then we go into mom. This is Scotty's mom, Judy. So I just said, hey, Judy, just go ahead and look at your son for me. Boom. I said, Scotty, go ahead and look at your mom. And this was both shot 7200 on a monopod, 7200 on a monopod. So I just got them to look at each other. Hey, Judy, look at your son. And then I moved. I paused. I went over to Scotty's side. Hey, Scotty, do me a favor. Look at your mom for me really quick. And then I didn't put this shot in here because I'm going to say that for the highlight. But what I did was, at the very end of this, same thing I did with the bride and her mom. Hey, Judy, do me a favor. Go ahead and give your son a hug for me. Boom. Gave him a big hug, and it worked out perfectly. So I have 3 shots that I can cut from that I was able to capture in less than a minute. Music picks up. Then we go into just 2 preview shots of the reception. This was shot with an 18 to 35 on the Steadicam, so turned out really good. Same thing with this shot. Now, this was the first look. We actually had Gabi stand in the back, so she pretty much walked up to Scotty, and instead of tapping him on the shoulder, we just told Scotty just to stand there, and When we tell him to turn around, he turns around. But you have to leave in one key detail, and when you tell them to turn around, they need to turn around on the side of the camera that you are on. So, for example, right here, I needed him to turn towards us. So the photographer was next to me, the music videographers were on the other side. So as long as he turns towards us, we're never going to see Scotty's back. We don't want to see the groom's back. So, boom, he had that really awesome reaction. Couldn't even touch his bride because he was so happy. It was perfect. Gabi's reaction was perfect too. And then we cut to this shot right here. So this particular shot was with my Steadicam 18 to 35, and all I'm doing, I'm just walking to the left. That's all I'm doing. So when I'm walking to the left like this and I capture that action, I have an assistant that I use on a wedding day. They don't do too much shooting, but what they're really there for is to help me out when it comes to what equipment do I need like right then and there. For example, right here I'm on my Steadicam. Just a second later, I needed to have my 7200. So what I did was I had my assistant. I just gave him my Steadicam really quick. We switched, and I was able to capture this shot right here of Scotty looking at Gabi. It's a little out of focus, but it's usable. The couple would never know that until now, obviously, because I just told you. But this right here was with the 7200 on the monopod. Boom. Shot of Gabi just looking at Scotty, laughing, all that good stuff. Now, the cool part about the first looks, this is one of the times in the day where you do not direct. You direct beforehand, but you do not direct during the first look because you want them to have that time. It's still a wedding day. They're still seeing each other for the first time. So let them enjoy that moment. Play this through one more time. So that wasn't directed, this wasn't directed, and that wasn't directed. After the first look, we brought them up to the cliffs. This couple was really cool with standing on the edge of a 2,000-foot drop. Not a lot of couples would be, but we talked them into, how beautiful these shots would be and all that good stuff. So what I actually did for this shot, this was the 18 to 35 with my Steadicam. My assistant is hiding behind this rock. I actually got him to throw the bride's veil up in the air. So you see it dropping right there. So that's how I did that. This shot. So the ceremony is another part of the day. It's actually the most important part of the day. That's why you're hired, is to capture their wedding, their ceremony. But this part, for example, you do not direct. You just capture. And you have to capture it to your best abilities, and you have to know what you're doing while you're doing that, if that makes sense. So what I did here was I knew where I needed to be, and they knew where they needed to walk. So we just kind of coordinated that. I knew where the photographer was at. So the photographer was able to get their shot perfectly. I got my shot perfectly, and the music videographers were actually down at the very end of the aisle waiting for Gabi to walk down the aisle. So that was perfect right there. This shot was Steadicam 18 to 35, still manual focus. So what you'll see right here is all of this in the background is all blurred out. Autofocus could have been a really good alternative for this, but if your camera does not have good autofocus, I guarantee you what would have happened is it would have been focused on all these trees in the background rather than this important part of dad and bride. So that's why I shoot in manual, is because I always know that in manual I can control everything. So a computer inside of a camera is not going to make the decision for me. I'm going to have to make that decision. So what I did right here was, since I'm tracking backwards, I'm actually walking. So I'm walking backwards with them. The way you keep that in focus is you keep that same distance in between you and the subject at all times. Don't shoot at a 1.8 or a 1.6. Shoot at kind of like a 2.8 or a 3.2 or something like that. That way you can have enough depth of field to where it still looks like you have shallow depth of field all the way back here. But let's say that you walk 2 or 3 feet out of your range, then it'll still be in enough focus to where you can use it. Alright, so we got that shot right there. bride walking with her dad down the aisle. So we need that reaction shot. So this is the other part where my assistant will definitely come into play. So what I'm doing right here is I'm on a Steadicam somewhere over here. Since I'm on a Steadicam, I obviously cannot capture the groom's reaction. So what I do is right before the ceremony, or right before actually the bride walks down the aisle, I take my 7200 on my monopod and I put it next to my assistant that's actually shooting the full wedding ceremony in the back. The full wedding ceremony never gets uploaded online. His camera is shot with a 7200, or no, a 7200 and a Canon 70D. I don't upload any of that footage online. That's just more of your traditional wedding video. So just to make sure that thing does not fall and that it's in focus, I put my monopod directly next to my assistant and I tell him, hey, watch this camera, make sure the groom's in focus for that reaction shot. Luckily, he followed my directions and we got this beautiful shot right here of the groom looking at the bride. We got his full reaction. It was a beautiful shot. And then during the ceremony, for the most part, I'm floating around with my 7200. So this right here was actually Gabi's parents, the bride's parents. This is just, I don't even know what part of the ceremony it was. It was just a different part of the ceremony, and they're obviously happy looking at the bride and groom. You see mom over there kind of look up for a minute because a tear's about to fall. None of this is directed. This is just kind of chance. I got lucky. I knew how to compose the shot and all that, so that's how that happened. Then we go into this shot. This was shot in the 7200 with the monopod. Like I said, I was crouched all the way down, just shooting up like that. Turned out to be a really beautiful shot. I don't move from this spot until I get the bride looking at the groom, at least just looking at him and smiling. Once I get that shot, I know I have that one shot that I need. And then after I get that shot, if I know it's going to be a longer ceremony, I'll actually get up. I'll walk all the way around the back. This is an outdoor wedding. It's easy to do with an outdoor wedding, not easy to do with an indoor ceremony. I walk all the way around to the other side to capture the groom's reaction. Same exact thing right here. I wait until I see him look at her and smile. That is what I wait for. If I don't get that shot, then I don't feel like I did my job. And then what I do, after all that's said and done, very last shot is another drone shot. You always want to end on a high note. So what I did was, at sunset, we brought the couple up to the cliffs to get some really cool shots of them. The photographers were with me, the music videographers were with me, and really just all working as a team. So while I'm flying my drone, I actually noticed this shot, and I was blown away. I was like, we need to get the bride and groom in here. So after everyone did what they needed to do and we started walking back down the cliff, I said, Scotty, Gabi, let's go ahead and get one more shot if you don't mind. It's going to be really quick. I told them to stand. There's actually a rock they're standing on, and on the other side of that rock is another 2,000 foot drop. So what I did was I just flew my drone kind of out far beyond these trees a little bit, not too far, and very slowly just kind of creeped in like that, and you can't see me at all, I'm ducked behind this tree. So I can still see my drone, I still have line of sight, but the bride and groom can also hear me giving directions. So what I'm doing is, as I'm flying in, I said, guys, go ahead and kiss each other. And then after you guys kiss, just look out and just keep on looking out at the sky. Boom. Once they're out of frame, I don't care what they do. So that is how I get everything that I need on a wedding day. Some of it's luck, some of it is directing. A lot of it, though, is just knowing how to get the shot that you want to get. You can do this with any bride or groom. There was nothing special done on this wedding day that was not done on any other wedding that I've ever done. There were still photographers there. There was still mom and dads there. Bridal party. It was normal wedding day. But the biggest thing is knowing how to take apart all those little details and make these people do what you want them to do without forcefully telling them what to do. So I hope this helped you guys out. Color grading. Let's go into color grading really quick. So let's actually take this shot. So what I'm doing is, let's go ahead and turn all these off. This is what it looked like before. After, before. You'll see that before it just looks really flat. It looks flat, it looks ugly. It's still a really nicely composed shot. It's in focus. But the big thing is that it's flat, and we want to bring some life into this. So what I always like to add, and I'll go through it in order, I always add my color correction filter. Always add that. The settings have already been tweaked. You see right here. I'm going to go into those settings with you. Then I add a vignette, whichever one you want to pronounce it as. And then I also add a touch of sharpening. Let's go ahead and look at her eyes. If you look at her eyes right now, off, on, off, on. It's not a huge difference, but it's noticeable. It's noticeable. So, the very first thing that I manipulate is the vignette. I always make sure that this little center dial is on my subject. For this right here, I actually did go ahead and I expanded that. The reason why I did expand that is just to let more light right on her face. This vignette right here, I expanded that all the way out because I don't want it to look like some stylistic type feel. I want it to actually look natural. So I expanded it all the way out. The darkening over here, I can adjust that if I want to. That's not noticeable at all. This is how it comes all the way. It's like that. It'll save you, and then sometimes it'll hurt you. The good thing that I like to do is I add these bars up top, and that is, I call them Cinebars. But you'll see right here, those bars, what I do is, you'll see when I cut it off. So it just gives it that cinematic look. And the reason why I also add those bars, it gives me more variation with editing, because what I can do, let's say I just did not frame the shot correctly in terms of tilt, so up and down. What I can do is I can move that shot up, I can move that shot down, at just enough though, just enough. So that's how I do that. Let's go to that color grading. So the sharpen, like I said, just a touch. Don't go crazy with it, just a touch. Color grading is the most important after you figure out that sharpening and that vignette. So exposure, we always do exposure first. This is what it looked like before. So this is completely, right out of the camera, unexposed, or it is exposed, but let's lighten it up a little bit. So I always increase these lights a little bit, just like that. So I increase this just a little bit. The mids, I increase those just a tad bit for this one. The darks, I always drop just a hair. Don't go crazy with the darks, just drop it a hair. Then the color itself. This is what it looked like without color grading. So this is after your exposure is done and you have color grading. What I'll do here is I always start with my mids, always. So when you start with your mids, what you're going to see, and I'll go ahead and see if I can do this. One second. So when you start with your mids right here, what's going to happen is I'm pulling that down to let a little bit more yellow in there. Just a little bit. Right now it's a little red, right now it's a little green. You want to find that hot spot that's kind of right there in the middle. Okay, it's still a little green, but then let's put these blacks up a little bit and let's shift them over. Now it's starting to become a little bit more natural of a look. And these highlights, let's bring those highlights up a little bit. And then the mids back down just a little bit more. Boom. There you go. So you'll see right here, we went from that to this. It's a really quick grade, but that's how I do that. Saturation I didn't increase this, but sometimes I increase it just a hair. And you see that life it gave it just a little bit. All right, guys, that was pretty much it. So I hope that this video helped you guys out a lot. We went from daytime to nighttime. I know this was a pretty long video, but like I said, at least I hope it helped you guys out. And if you have any questions for me at all, definitely hit me up at Facebook, Ben's Productions. You can go to my website, www.philipbenz.com, and shoot me an email there. Or you can just go ahead and comment directly below and ask any other questions that you need. But I appreciate it again, guys, and hope you guys stay tuned and watch some more of my videos. All right, thanks.